We've put all the great High Noon live shows in one place for your convenience. Look out for H&L's greatest moments. Next, make a date to catch us live right here on LinkedIn. On Mondays, catch Ntisiki Mkhize with business, how-to and mentorship. On Tuesdays, Ursula Buerta with confidence and presence. Wednesdays, see Nikki Bush dancing with disruption, women empowerment and reinvention. On Thursdays, Nico Stain with storytelling, structure and presentation. And Fridays, Joni Petty presents sleep, resilience and bouncing forward. Watch High Noon live on LinkedIn. Weekdays at 12, South African Standard Time.
Hi, my name is Shelley Walters. I am the CEO and founder of the Sales Counsel. We are the creators of Africa's first remote selling school, an innovation on the continent, which is fitting for our topic today. You see, I began my sales career in 1999 when we were still selling fax machines with thermal fax rolls. A lot has changed since then, but any professional and any seller that has been in the role of sales for more than a decade, or in my case, a decade or two, has at some point felt the threat of technology and all that the future of selling may be or present. So,
here we go. 2.
Hi. My name is Shelley Walters. I'm the CEO and founder of the Sales Counsel. We are the creators of Africa's first remote selling school, teaching salespeople across the continent using digital tools, which is quite fitting for today's topic. You see, I began my career in sales in 1999. For those of you who were working in sales in 1999 or who were working at all in 1999, you'll remember that the world was a very different place. We were still using fax machines with thermal fax rolls. There was the threat of Y2K, and so now we have survived not only Y2K, but also a pandemic, but that we need those notches in our belt. If you've been in sales or in your profession for any length of time, then surely you have felt the threat or the fear that comes with technology that seems to be taking over many parts of our roles, and the steep learning curve that much of this technology presents to us. So today, we're going to very quickly talk about the topic of the future of sales and the future of selling, and what it means for sellers like you and like me. According to Gartner, by the year 2025, 80% of B2B, that is business to business, sales engagements are going to be happening across digital channels. That is true regardless of whether you are a large or a small business. For those of you watching from large enterprises, that may mean that you have to move a behemoth from one direction into another. You may need to revisit your processes and, of course, the technology that supports those processes. But for those of you that represent smaller businesses or who are working on your own, you too will have to meet the requirement to engage with your business customers using digital channels. You see, the market is not concerned with how mature or immature an individual business may be, nor is it concerned with which particular territory you may be anchored in. Now, the next statistic is one that should probably come as a little bit of a shock and make most tenured and experienced salespeople a little uncomfortable. According to Gartner, 60% of sales will be driven by data and analytics rather than the intuition and experience-based engagement that so many sellers are used to. Now, that does not mean that your intuition and your personality no longer have a place in the sales process. In fact, it's the opposite. According to Forrester, and this information was released around 5 years ago, Forrester predicted that within 15 years, so let's say 10 years from now, about 40% of salespeople would no longer be in sales. That's terrifying when you consider that most of us sellers don't have particularly good admin skills. You see, the issue is not that we'll be replaced by technology. The issue is that will we be able to compete with a competitor who's making superior use of technology? Those sellers, those organizations, those individuals, those teams and those leaders that are not willing to engage now with the learning curve that technology presents will find themselves at a distinct disadvantage in time to come. Casting our minds back to 1999, the year 2000, Y2K, when the internet first became popularized and email was introduced into the way that we work, there were 3 distinct responses. These responses were: 1, this is never going to stick. It's a fad. 2, well, this is everything, and now we will no longer need to meet face-to-face with our customers. And 3, what does this technology present to us in opportunities and challenges? My hope is that as you begin to elevate yourself and your team so that you are future fit and sales ready, that you will look at the opportunities that are presented by the technology and the shifts that we're experiencing now. Remember, the real challenge is not that you'll be replaced by technology. Will you be able to outpace a competitor who is making superior use of technology? Now, the next piece of information I want to share with you is critical for you to understand. This directly impacts your ability to sell. According to Harvard Business School, in 1970, the average executive was receiving around 1,000 pieces of external communication per year. And although this is a cliche, in 1970, the average executive had more home support and less domestic responsibility than executives enjoy today. In the year 2010, that number had escalated to 30,000 pieces of external communication per year. And of course, 2010 was already 12 years ago, more than a decade. We don't know what that number is today. What we do know is that the brain has not changed in any significant manner to allow us to adapt to the onslaught of this information. Now, for the future of selling, I want you to understand 2 terms: synchronous and asynchronous. And perhaps you say, oh, I understand what synchronous and asynchronous is. But do you understand what that means as it relates to your sales job? Synchronous communication is a communication that is happening in real time. That could be in person, that could be on the phone, or that could be in a virtual meeting. Asynchronous communication is information that is sent to you or communicated to you with the purpose of you engaging with that information in your time. In 1970, and much of the 80s and the 90s, the only way you could have a synchronous conversation with somebody was in person or on the phone. But that has changed significantly. Now there are many ways for us to have synchronous communication with individuals, sometimes using multiple channels at the same time. And with all of this information, we also have the asynchronous information coming our way. This matters because your salespeople now need to know how to sell using conversation skills, using video, using written sales messaging, long form for email, short form for WhatsApp and live chat. Your salespeople need to know how to manage their focus and attention, and they need to be such strong communicators that they can communicate to your client in such a way that they can gain and hold their attention, because your customers can only act on information that they remember. So that's just a foretaste of what the future of sales is going to bring for us, and what it is that you and your team need to understand, what you need to be ready for, and the opportunities that exist for you to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. Don't be intimidated by the changes that are happening, and never fear that you're going to be replaced entirely by technology. The real consideration is, will you be replaced or outpaced by a competitor who is making superior use of technology? When we leverage the technology, it will amplify our reach and increase our influence, allowing our personalities to re-enter into the communication and engagement again, using tools like video It will allow us again to use our intuition, but this time at scale and backed by data.
Let's talk about pricing. Now, pricing is all about the value that you can bring to your customers. When you think about pricing, it's twofold. Firstly is, what is the cost of your inputs? So if you're providing a product, what does it cost you to get all those ingredients to make your product and to package it and to finally deliver it to your customer? If you're providing a service, what are the different resources that go into delivering that service, and what does that cost you? And those different components then come together to inform what your price should be. Second is to think about value, and this is more important. People pay for value. If you can figure out the pain point that people have and you can create a solution for that, so how do you bring together that opportunity with this issue that bothers people? If you can add that value and people see the value in your product or service, then people would be willing to pay your particular price for your specific product. A good thing to do is to go out there and see what else is being charged in the market, but also find out from potential customers what they would be willing to pay for the problem that you're going to solve. Simple steps that you can do right now is to just sit down and think about what's on your mind around your business, and if you have pricing, how's that pricing going to work, and what do people want to pay for your particular solution? And if you can get some feedback on that, you can get out there and start your business. Look out for our action steps to follow.
You're watching HybriCON 2022. I'm Nico Steyn, and I'm so thrilled to be able to talk to Shelley Walters. That was pretty scary and very interesting and just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nico. I'm hoping that with time, the scary will go to inspired.
It admittedly inspired, of course. I mean, it's amazing stuff that you were talking about. But this idea of over communication and so much material coming at people is, of course, top of mind for me, because as communicators, we have to cut down. That was the first big skill you were talking about. But I mean, when you really start looking at this, there's so many people who are probably feeling a little bit of angst right now. So what do you have to say to those?
So what I want to say to them is, the difference between anxiety and excitement, chemically, there is no difference. A lot of it has to do with your perception and your mindset. So reframe it and simply accept. Firstly, there have been many shifts like this. Our parents went through them. Our grandparents have been through them. And, what's interesting about this, and really I think is quite encouraging, is the issue isn't that we get to a certain age in which we can't do our jobs. The issue is that we get to an age where we no longer want to adapt or embrace the learning curve. So as long as you're willing to embrace the learning curves, and with that you need the perspective to say, okay, this is a challenge, but there's a great opportunity here, and you shift that to excitement, you'll find that as long as you do that, you'll stay entirely relevant, and you will. There's no threat of you, particularly in sales, there's no threat of you ultimately no longer being made redundant, because as long as you're relevant and you're closing deals, that's the great thing about sales.
That would be sales. Now, of course, for people like me, I'm terrible with sales, so that would be a double whammy. But I do hear that the first thing that you're talking about is centering yourself, calming, and there's so many fine examples really to look at people who are doing this well, right? And say, how can we emulate this? How can we do that?
Yeah, so let me just pause you on that and say, when we say we don't like sales, again, words don't matter as much as what we picture when we hear the words. So when we hear the words, we think of used car salesmen. We think of, even Barack Obama said to one of his opponents, you're nothing more than a used car salesman. We think about bad experiences we've had with pushy sellers. But we like to say, selling doesn't help, but helping does sell. Now, I don't know any. Do you like to help people?
Of course, we all do. And when you turn it into a conversation, that's where you're going with this, right?
Yeah. But the thing is, so think of Wolf of Wall Street. Not the most helpful guy. No. I think we can agree. Well, allegedly, although it was determined by by an actual court of law. Now, he was out there selling investments and opportunities that ultimately weren't real opportunities. Now, what if you had a competitor that said, well, these tools, and I don't need to learn that, it's beneath me. When we're not willing to learn how to become better communicators, Nico, when we're not willing to use the tools available, we actually are leaving our customers, our users, the ones that we care about, that we're invested for, we're leaving them vulnerable to other potential predators or inferior suppliers. So when you see that to help somebody, we think about somebody who wants to be a doctor. Yeah. Okay, they have to go through all of the schooling, then they have to go and do their internship, they have to go and do their public service, and only then do they get to actually practice. They don't fall in love with the study. Yeah. They fall in love with the outcome. So if you want to help somebody, you're a financial advisor, or doing what you do, putting people on screen, it's just a means to an end. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think the moment that you can turn it into something that's a conversation, it's not so scary anymore. But when we listen to those statistics and automation and computers and algorithms and stuff, that's pretty scary.
Right, now, so you just raised a great point, okay? When we're afraid, as sellers, we get afraid of being replaced by AI. You've got to understand something. A conversation, particularly in a B2B environment, that is a dynamic conversation around a complex sale, is something that you cannot predict. And if it cannot be predicted, you can't simply use AI to meet the requirement of the person, of the receiver of your communication. So in a B2B complex sales environment, your communication skills become primary. Now, AI may support many other things you do.
But it's not a person.
It's not a person. So perhaps AI will be listening to key words that you're saying and making that sales collateral available to you intuitively, based on keywords. But that conversation is something that the best robot in the world can't replace, not yet.
That's the skill you're going to bring. Now let's talk briefly about these new skill sets that people would need to learn in order to cope with this changing world.
So first and foremost, as you've said, is communication skills. Okay, but what does that mean? What does communication skills mean? I need to be able to take my value proposition. Firstly, I need to understand, okay, value is like beauty. What do they say about beauty? Beauty is?
Skin deep. Sorry, not right.
Also in the eye of the beholder. Okay. No, you're right. But beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah.
You may look at a particular item of furniture and you think it's amazing, and I look at that and think I wouldn't want that in my home, or vice versa. Yeah. It's the same with value. Value is not something we determine in our sales training, in a workshop somewhere. We have to use frameworks, and that's part of what we do. And communicate that value. And that value communication now comes, and this is part of what we see in the future of sales, is there's this massive integration between sales and marketing. Because it's the marketing message, along with the sales message, along with the collateral that you use to support that pitch at the late stage. What's going out on your website? What is that messaging? What are your salespeople communicating? And what is the supporting collateral? They have to be a cohesive message. We can't, and as often happens, there's one marketing message, and the salespeople very seldom re-embed that message in their conversation, and sometimes they shouldn't. Sometimes the marketing message isn't great. But remember, customers can only act on information they remember. So when you have a cohesive message,
exactly.
The next thing is you've got to learn how to write. In the old days, 1970s, it was enough to talk a good game. That's why they say, were you born with it, the gift of the gab?
Yeah.
But if you can't articulate it in an email, or a LinkedIn message, or a WhatsApp, or
shorten it, lengthen it, put it, and be appropriate, isn't it? Isn't that the one thing about this age, that we have to be appropriate to our audience also? 100%.
And the last thing that I want to say, and this is what you do at Tycoon Tribe, and it's an enormous value and service that you offer to everybody here in Gauteng, and certainly you have done for us at the Sales Council and Rekindle, is salespeople need to know how to use video. I grew up at a time when if you were on video, you were either on police file. So for our international audiences, I think the name is self-explanatory. No, you don't want to be on police file. Okay, or you were caught, had some accident and you were caught in the background walking through a shopping center, and then people would call you on your home phone and say,
we saw you on television,
right?
We were all watching television.
So there's this big reluctance, and selfies you can control. It's a still and you can do a filter, and with video, your own personality
needs to be there, right?
But you know what I've learned this working with you, and what we've learned working with our delegates, is the only person who's surprised by what you look like on camera is you. Mm-hmm. The rest of us have been looking at your face.
With it, for, in my case, 55. We were 6 years.
So I'm not going to give that away. But here's the thing, right? Video is simply a way of doing business now. LinkedIn, you can send direct video. So organizations need to be investing in those skills, teaching their salespeople how to use them for sales, and working with organizations like Tycoon Tribe to get people camera ready, to get them confident, to teach them the technical skills that they need, so that it's not a major investment of time to simply imagine, you could send a video directly to the CEO of an organization on LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Past his secretary, you don't even need the telephone number.
In fact, if you know his number, you could actually do it via WhatsApp now.
You could.
Now, I'm going to stop it right here because there's so much information that you give, but we're going to take a quick break, and I still have lots more to ask right after this. So don't go away, because we're going to be back in seconds. This is HybriCON 2022, and we're talking to Shelley Walters. Thank you again for doing this. This is so fabulous, and I must say your keynote just kind of blew me away a little. I'm still a little bit, still feel a little bit of that. I want to ask about this amazing material that you do at the Sales Council and how you really function as well. So let's start there in terms of the material you're still going to share with us in HybriCON coming up next week.
Thanks, Nico. So what we did at the Sales Council when COVID hit was and it wasn't by design, it kind of just, and there's a lesson in here as well that organizations listening can apply. We were so consumed by the challenges that our customers were experiencing. Now, that's an important thing to understand, because very often we give much more consideration to our competitors than to our customers. Isn't that true?
True.
And as a speaker that I once heard used to say, your competitors aren't going to give you any money. So we were really thinking about our customers, and we began to create these online programs for them, and then inadvertently created Africa's first remote selling school. So we have a whole suite of products that we offer to corporates as part of formalized learning programs with coaching and application challenges and whatnot. But what we're going to do for HybriCON, since it is the very first one, and hats off to you guys for this innovation. You are, you are leading the future here, and it's wonderful to know that we can reach audiences, South Africa and the US and whatnot. So what we're doing specifically for
In case you were wondering whether that's live, it so was. Well done for that remark, Shelley. We had a huge crisis right there. The beauty is that we can continue, and I very briefly wanted to come back. You had developed this program during lockdown, and you started an online program.
Yeah, so in a nutshell, next week, Monday, we're going to be running 2 sessions. The one is how to be digital sales savvy. So that's a webinar that we've put together specifically for you guys. And then straight after that, we're going to be running a session on how to take back your life. So we spoke about this overwhelm. I can't see you, but I know you were nodding your head. I know you feel the pain. And so we prepared a session just for you to help you to drown out the noise and the distractions so you can focus again on growing your business, growing your sales, growing your revenue. So don't miss out on those sessions. There will be great value in there. And because Nico, who says he doesn't like sales, is really such a great salesman, we've got some great exclusive offers and access for you.
This is fabulous, so we're looking forward to it. We don't have to rush it though, because we still have a minute or two. And I want to ask you particularly about the Sales Council and how you work. You work with corporates and smaller business also, individuals?
Yes.
Tell us a bit about that.
So we've just started to release offerings for individuals. So if you go onto our website, that may be a little clunky, but you can always reach out to us directly. And do mention that you are a HybriCON audience member so that we can give you great offers. But essentially, we've got these individual courses that you can do on demand, like you would do with a Netflix. You can work through them at your own time, your own pace. So we give you beautiful handouts. There's an assessment, and then, of course, you get a certificate at the end of it. But most importantly, you learn how to actually apply. So as an example, we teach you how to set up your space technically for great sales meeting. Sound, light, camera, what to wear, how to use your voice to keep your audience engaged.
So necessary. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then my personal favorite is a sales productivity program that we have, because our customers are drowning in information, but they're starved of insight. And if we don't learn new ways of work, Nico, we are not going to be able to navigate whatever the future is bringing us, never mind the future of sales. I don't know about you, but I did typing at school.
Okay, that we didn't do.
Okay,
that was rough.
So we did, you probably did woodwork and homemaking or whatever. So in other words, why do I say that? I say because this is not a skill you could have learned at school, nor is it a skill your parents could have equipped you for, because the world wasn't like it is today. There has been an unprecedented adoption of technology, and nobody could have predicted the pace at which we are working. So to find these resources, to learn how to work through this and with it, is not readily available. And equally, perhaps you're a leader in another capacity as a parent. By learning what you learn on our sales productivity program, you will also be able to impart some of these really important skills to your children and to other team members as well.
Wonderful point. And I think exactly to that, the world's changed so fast. For so long, we've been trying to digitize people and getting them into this space. And suddenly it worked overnight and everybody knew what Zoom is. The next level is exactly what you're talking about, going, how do we all become more digital friendly? On every level, because it's not just going to be in sales, it's going to be in any form of communication, in any form of consulting even.
Yeah. And we see, too frequently we see unconscious incompetence. So everybody says, I know how to Zoom. Well,
not really.
All the time we're seeing light from the back casting shadows over your face. We're seeing people looming over their laptops, so the mirror neurons in your brain feel like this person's looming over you, so we see an inappropriate use of the visual real estate that you have. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And so I would certainly encourage people to invest in these skills.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Even with our glitch, we had time to get a lot more information. It was wonderful. Thanks for joining us.
No, and thank you. Thank you, Nico, and to the Tycoon Tribe team for this opportunity. And again, well done to you guys. This is incredible.
Thank you. I'm just loving the experience. And of course, getting to speak to the great ones out there personally like this is just a total thrill for me. Thank you. I hope that you had a lot of fun, and I hope that you stay tuned. Coming up, we're going to talk to Ntisiki Mkeze. Don't go away. There's lots more.
So if you're perhaps waking up feeling a little